Alright, got with us. In this video, I will give you a template that you could use to organize your ideas and turn it into a complete one-shot. And you know something? It can be used for any idea that you have. But before to show you the most important story structure in this world, we need to talk about the basic of any one-shot. Let's go! What is a comic one-shot? A comic one-shot is a complete comic story told in a single issue with a clear beginning, middle, and conclusion, designed to deliver a complete story without continuing it into a complete comic series. Most comic one-shots are 20 or 40 pages, but some can be shorter, like 10 or 15 pages if it's a very tight story, typically 4 or 6 panels per page, but it can vary depending on pacing. Therefore, if you want to write your one-shot, we need to focus on you. What do you want to tell? If you watch this video from Brandon Sanderson, you will find one of the best advices ever. Brandon Sanderson always says the very first step of writing is to ask yourself, what do you want to write about? Not plot, not characters, but theme. Do you want to tell a story about fate beating fear like David and Goliath? Or about arrogance turn it into responsibility like Iron Man? That theme is your anchor. Everything else builds around it. So, in order to get the theme, ask yourself, what do you want to write about? The message. Every one-shot and every story carries something to teach. This is the core feeling or message you want to share through your one-shot. For example, faith in God and courage can overcome impossible odds. When you analyze the story, the idea is not just a boy fighting a giant, but the deeper truth. With faith in God and bravery, even the weakest can defeat the strongest. Let's see one more example. Iron Man. Responsibility comes with power and intelligence. The story isn't only about a man builds a suit of armor, but about Tony realizing that his genius should be used to protect others, not just himself. In this step, just write down the key idea or emotion of your one-shot. Keep it simple, because you will use it later in the next step.
キャラクターズ
Every one-shot needs a strong protagonist, but also the people around them who shape the story, like antagonists and secondary characters. You can create any of these characters in 3 quick points. First, what is the external goal of your character? In this step, you will write what your character is trying to achieve in the story, so the objective that drives the one-shot. And you want to divide your story into 3 main types of characters: protagonist, villain, and secondary characters. The protagonist is the main character, the one who drives the story forward. Their decisions and growth shape the direction of the one-shot. The audience usually follow their journey and connect emotionally with their struggles and victories. In the case of the protagonist, David from 1 Samuel was defeat Goliath and prove that the fighting God is not death. On the other hand, Tony Stark or Iron Man, his main goal is to redeem himself after realizing that his inventions are being used to harm others. However, the villain is the character or force that opposes the goal of the protagonist. They don't always have to be evil. They just have different motivations. Sometimes the villain might even start as a secondary character, who later change roles and become the main opposition. In the case of the villain, Goliath from 1 Samuel, he stands as the physical and symbolic obstacle to David's fate. His purpose is to test David's belief, creating the central conflict that reveals true power comes not from physical might, but from fate. If we talk about the villain of Obadiah Stane, he forced Tony to build weapons and gain control, showing their power over others. The secondary characters are not background NPCs, they are meaningful side characters who support or influence the story's main conflict. They can help or challenge either the protagonist or the villain, but they don't drive the story themselves. They make the world feel alive and help develop the main characters' personalities and choices. Saul's fears contrast with David's faith, highlighting David's courage and trust in God. Peppers support Tony Stark emotionally and morally, reminding him of his humanity and responsibility. So, in this step, you will write, and yeah, for each character that you have in mind, what is the external goal of your character. Second, what is the internal change of your character? This is what your character becomes inside the story, the emotional growth that happens because of what they have experienced. For example, Goliath at the end of the story realizes that strength alone cannot win against faith in God. Jarvis' principal purpose was to help Tony to build weapons, but at the end of the story, Jarvis guides Tony to see the value of sacrifice. This point is important because we need to have an idea about how the character will be at the end of the story, choosing the rules. In simple words, if your character is very good at one thing, they should be also bad at something else. Think of it as a line. On one side, expertise and ability. On the other side, limitations and weaknesses. Example, Goliath was tall, strong, and a seasoned warrior, but he was also arrogant and slow. When he saw David, a small, skinny shepherd, he thought the fight would be easy. David, however, was clever, quick, and had a deep faith in God. Because the story clearly set up their abilities and limitations, the fight made sense. It wasn't just luck, it was the natural result of how the characters were built. Your protagonists need certain weaknesses to make the conflict believable. If the protagonist doesn't have the skills to defeat the villain, then introduce a secondary character who can teach them what they need. But be careful, a character who is too perfect becomes boring and hard to use in a story. And of course, don't forget the essentials that bring your character to life: age, appearance, nationality, etc. Only include the details that matter to the story's feeling. At the end of this step, you should have a simple character card. And yes, you should create a character card for every important character in your story. Alright, let's go into talk about setting and stakes. Here is a simple definition of each. Settings, the where and when of your story. It's the environment, location, and time period where events happen. Alright, so let's focus on world building. It's about creating a story universe that feels alive. It isn't just where your story happens, it's how everything in that world affects your characters. But how could you create a world that feels real and support your story? I'll give you 3 points that you can use to create any world. Choose the core environment. Decide where the story mostly happens: a city, a forest, a battlefield, and establish the time period, past, present, or future. Set the rules. Define the law, technology, magic that govern your world, like advanced technology or the faith in God. Add meaningful details. Include elements that impact your character or story. It could be the weather or the culture to make the world feel alive. Let's take a look to Iron Man. The core environment used in Iron Man are a high-tech lab, a dark cave in the Middle East. The story also takes place in the present. The rules are technology is advanced, weapons are powerful, and moral responsibility is often ignored by the protagonist. And finally, the meaningful details are Tony Stark laboratory have high technology. The cave restricts movement. Soldiers respond according to their loyalties. The isolation forced Tony to innovate under pressure. The setting makes your story feel real and specific because it should connect directly to your message. I will show you one more example. The message of David's story was faith and courage can overcome impossible odds. David's external goal was defeat Goliath and prove that faith in God is alive. The perfect environment for this wasn't a quiet farm. It was a battlefield with two armies watching. That setting amplified the tension and gave meaning to David's victory. Always choose a setting that makes your message stronger and your character's goal more powerful. But each story have a risk or a stake. A stake is the risk in your story. It is what the character and the audience stand to lose if the hero fails. Example: David. If he loses, Israel's army will be enslaved by the Philistines. Iron Man. If he fails, he dies in captivity and his weapons keep harming innocent. Together, the setting and the stake show the reader where the story happens and why it matters. So, for now, just write down what is the setting and the stake of your one-shot, because the time has come.
Kishōtenketsu.
You might think, what is?
Kishōtenketsu.
It's a simple 4-part Japanese story structure that let you tell a complete meaningful story in a compact form. You can create strong characters, a surprising conflict, all without needing a long series of chapters. That's why it is perfect for one-shot. Therefore, let's break it down.
Ki.
This is the starting point of your story. It is where you show the audience the world, the main character, and their routine before the conflict begins. Let me show you this example. The story of David from 1 Samuel begins in a quiet valley. David, the youngest son of his family, is tending sheep under the hot sun, while his brothers are soldiers in the army. Life is simple, and he seems too small and unimportant to matter in the grand conflict of king. But his routine reveals his heart. He is faithful, brave, and quietly preparing for something greater, even if it's no one sees yet. Okay, and what about Iron Man? The story opens with Tony Stark living in the height of luxury. He is a billionaire genius, showing off his inventions, cracking jokes, and soaking in fame. His life is parties and weapons demonstrations for the military. On the surface, everything looks perfect, but underneath, Tony doesn't think about consequence. He is careless, arrogant, and believes his technology makes the world safer without questioning the cost. So, think of
Ki.
as the silence before the storm. It makes the reader care about what's coming next.
Sho.
This is where you build on the introduction and start showing the audience more about your character's life. You are not at the main conflict yet, but you are preparing the ground for it. Day after day, David watches over his sheep. When bears approach, he doesn't run. Instead, he reaches for his sling. To others, he is just a boy. He sings Sons of faith, believing that God protect him as he protect his sheep. Those same skills and courage are preparing him for a much greater test. On the other hand, Tony Stark in his lab, he pushes technology further, building machines only he could imagine. His goal is clear, to step on top and to keep inventing. His brilliance is his greatest muscle, but it is his arrogance. He believes his creation only make the world safer, never questioning the damage they provoke. So at this point, our story should be showing drama to the reader. You need to give a little pieces of curiosity about what will happen a few pages forward.
10,
This is the moment everything changes. It is when you break away from the routine and introduce a surprise, challenge, or conflict that flip the story on its head. One day, David leaves his flock to bring food to his brother at the battlefield. He expects nothing more than a quick errand, but instead, he finds the army paralyzed with fear. Across the valley is Goliath, a giant in heavy armor, who challenged anyone to fight. The soldiers retreat, but David feels something different rising inside him. This is no longer about courage, it is about faith, honor, and the fate of these people. The boy now steps forward to face a giant, a challenge no one believes he can win. However, Iron Man has another good example. Tony Stark is showcasing his weapons at a military demo, but suddenly everything changed. During a trip to test a new weapon, he is captured by soldiers. In the dark cave, Tony realizes his genius alone won't save him. The man who once controlled the world now must rely on ingenuity and courage just to survive. His life has changed, and the journey to become Iron Man truly begins. Of course, our character is in the main problem of the one-shot, and the last part.
Ketsu,
This is the final part of the story, where everything comes together. It resolves the conflict, shows the outcome, and delivers the emotional payoff for the audience. David swings his limb, striking Goliath squarely in the forehead. The giant falls, and the Philistines' army run away in panic. David stands tall. Through courage, skills, and faith in God, he has overcome the impossible. And of course, Tony tests the suit he built in the cave, finally breaking free from his captors. Back home, he announces a new path. No more weapon sales. Tony Stark will use his intelligence and resources to protect people, not just profit from them. Tony has grown into a hero, ready to face greater challenges, with purpose and conscience. From the first step to the final one, we have a complete one-shot. Remember, every great story, just like every great life, has a purpose and a lesson, as the Bible reminds us in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans.